And he said, he being God, and he said, go out and stand on the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before the Lord, but the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice to him that said, what are you doing here, Elijah? So what we have here is a chiasm. So what we're going to have is a repeat of the conversation that started back in verse 9. It'll be word for word. Jehovah says, what are you doing here, Elijah? He said, I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword, and I, even I only, am left, and they seek to take away my life. So that is word for word a repetition of what happened back up in verses 9 and 10. And of course, one of the things we all have learned about chiasms is they are a way to point you at something significant. So, what are they pointing us to? We started off, and he's laying down somewhere south of Beersheba, having a pity party. I am no better than my fathers. Kill me. I've failed. Run away. God picks him up, dusts him off, gives him a couple of warm meals, and sends him 40 days back to Horeb, or Sinai, which is where Israel's covenant with the Lord was first ratified. Then we have the chiasm, where the Lord asks him, what are you doing here? And he gives his piteous answer. Then we have this series of events. You have a mighty wind, you have an earthquake, and you have fire. And it says that Jehovah was not in those things. What are those things? Who has he just defeated? Baal. What is Baal? Baal is the god of nature. He's worshipped as the god who controls all of these natural processes. So you have these mighty demonstrations, and God is not in those. Not that God can't do those, because several verses back, he in fact did have fire come down, and God did that. So God is capable of doing that, but that's not how God wants to get your attention. And oh, by the way, what happened at Sinai? Fire and the voice of God coming down the hill, and what was Israel's reaction? So what you have is Elijah coming back to the place where God made the covenant with Israel. You have, in a sense, God manifesting himself to Elijah in much the same way as he manifested himself to Israel. And what it says this time is that's not where God is. And oh, by the way, those are also manifestations of what Baal is believed to be able to accomplish. Now, we've just demonstrated that he can't. It doesn't exist. So he can't manifest those things. But people who worship Baal attribute to him those kinds of natural phenomena. And so what God is saying is, the whole nation was standing here, and we went through this, and they said, Moses, you go talk to him, because we're not going to stand here and listen to him. We'll die. Come back, recreate that event, and this time God explicitly says, I'm not in that stuff. And then finally you have the quiet voice, which is God speaking to you gently over a lifetime, as opposed to thunderously in one huge event. And remember, we said earlier that miracles don't convert people. Miracles wear off. You have tremendous miracle on Shabbat, but you got to go to work on Monday, and you got to pick up tortillas, and you got to drive to Nebraska and all that kind of stuff, and the miracle fades. It does. So what God is saying here is that all of these dramatic demonstrations that you have just gone through are not the thing that is going to be effective in getting people to listen to me. It's a much longer, quieter process.